Okay, so today's lesson is the concept of estimating. And in the concept of estimating, look, to be honest with you, estimating was a whole lot more important in the past. And the reason estimating was a whole lot more important in the past is not everybody walked around with a calculator in their pocket. They just didn't. In the past, a lot of people didn't even own a calculator. And therefore, then, estimating was really important. Now, estimating still has some value to allow you to have a general idea of whether your answer makes sense or not. We're going to talk about a lot of that the rest of the course. But the whole concept of estimating in and of itself is a little bit out of date in that just about anywhere anybody goes today, they carry a calculator with them. Yes? Right?
Yeah.
I mean, we all have a calculator these days, and therefore then it's not as much of a deal, although we should have a concept of estimating. Again, we'll talk more about that in the future as to when we get to things to think about whether an answer makes sense to us. That has importance, and we'll deal with it there. Now, one thing you've got to be able to do, and I always find it a little bit amazing, but it happens. People can get to this point and still not know how to round off. Can I tell you that you need to get rounding off settled in your mind once and for all today? Because look, we're going to round off the whole rest of the year in certain situations. That means if you don't know how to round off, then often you're going to get the wrong answer, the wrong final answer, because you just don't know how to round off. So if that's you and you struggle with rounding off, you got to make sure that after we're done today, it makes sense to you. And if not, ask me questions. Ask as we go, and I'll try to be as clear as I can. All right, rounding off, it is important that you know your places. I hope you do. I hope you can go one place to the right of the decimal point and say that's the tenths. And 2 places is the hundredths. And 3 is the thousandths. And 4 is the 10,000th place. And then the 100,000th. And then the millionth. And then the next would be the 10 millionth. Then the 100 millionth. Then the billionth. Then the 10 billion, then the 100 billion, and the trillion, and 10 trillion, then it's all right. And then going forward, I would hope we all know our places by now. Ones and tens and hundreds and thousand and 10,000, 100,000, million, etc., and forward that way. But you do have to know your place. And look, a lot of times in rounding, they might say round off to the 100th. All right, you better know that that means 2 decimal places. All right, so we could say round to 2 decimal places, or we could say round to the 100th. At which case, you would both say, oh yeah, okay, two places after the decimal point. All right, so let's get into rounding. All right, what I try to get a student to do that struggles is box the rounding digit. Box the rounding digit. You say, what in the world is the rounding digit? The place to which you are rounding. So, with our example up here, if I were rounding to the tenths, I would box the 1, right? Don't do this, just watch. If I were rounding to the hundredths, I would box the 2. If I were rounding to the thousandths, I would box the 3. You getting the idea? Yes. Okay. You're going to box the rounding digit. And then we, of course, have to deal with these rules. Now, if you don't know the rules, you're not going to know what to do. The rules aren't hard. Rules are pretty easy. All right, we understand that if look at the digit to the immediate right. Okay, for those of you that need help, draw your arrow going to the right so you know which way right is. I'm serious. You know, these are all things that could cause an easy thing to be hard to somebody. All right, and the right is that way. So if the immediate digit to the right is less than 5, you don't change the rounding digit, right?
Yes.
You just leave it. For example, everybody look at the screen. What if they said round our number up here to the 1,000th? I would box the 1,000th. I would look to the digit to the right. It's less than 5, and therefore I would leave the 3, correct? Right? Rounding. It's pretty easy stuff. Not a whole lot involved. All right, but then what if it's the digit to the right is greater than or equal to 5? 5 or bigger, right? That's what we mean. Greater than or equal. By the way, you got to know your symbols. And it's an arrowhead, and left is smaller and right is bigger, right? So when it points left, it's less than. When it points right, it's greater than. So greater than or equal to 5, then we round up. So for example, what if they said round to the 10,000th? I would box the 4. I would look and say, oh, it's 5 or bigger. Change my 4 to a 5. Yes? And that's how we round. All right, well, there's a couple other things that can try to trip you up. When rounding numbers greater than 9, change all digits to the decimal point to 0. When rounding numbers greater than 9, change all digits to the decimal point to 0. So I'll give you a quick example. Let's go ahead and write, we'll do a simplistic number. Let's go 777. Just write 7. Go ahead and write that in your notes, 777. Let's round this to the nearest 100. 100. So would you agree we would box the 7, yes? We would look at the digit to the right, and because it's 5 or bigger, we'll change that box 7 to an 8. Now, some people want to just leave their answer as 8. Okay, how does 777 round up to 8? All right, does that even make sense? That doesn't even make sense. And so what I'm saying is those other two places have to go to 0 placeholders, right? 777 rounds up to 800. Makes sense? Just think, right? I mean, 8 doesn't make any sense. You got to use 0 placeholders. That's all I'm saying. That's for numbers bigger than 1. You got to use 0 placeholders. All right, for any digit past that. Number 4. What about this scenario? If the rounding digit is to the right of the decimal point, listen now, this is real important. The number must end at the rounding digit. And I'm going to put parentheses place. At the rounding place maybe would have been a better way to say that than the rounding digit. But they're one and the same. If you're rounding a number to the right of the decimal point, it's got to end at the rounding place. So let's do another example of this one. Okay, so let's suppose we had something like this. 0.134. Let's go 0.134. Let's say I said to you, round this number to the nearest 100th. Nearest 100th. So, what would you box in? You'd box in the 3. See, you got to know your places. Tenths, hundredths, thousandth. You're going to look to the digit to the right. Oh, it's less than 5. Therefore, I leave my 3 just as it is. Do I put a 0 where the 4 is? No. My number has to end at the rounding place. It's got to end at that rounding place where that box is. Okay. Here, I'll show you one other weird one. Let's do another example. Let's suppose we had 0.27964. 0.27964. Let's suppose we said round to the 1,000th. what digit do you box? The 9, right? Now I look to the right. Do I increase my 9 to a 10?
No.
No.
Doesn't it go up 1?
Yes.
It's got to go up 1. It's got to go up 1. So I have a 0 there now, right? I got to carry my 1. That's an 8. And we have 0.280. Do I need that O? Yes, I've got to end the number at the rounding place.
People.
Mason, stop. This is not what this is about. Capiche? Good. Okay. So we got to round it to the rounding. We got to end it at the rounding place when the number ends to the right decimal. Some of you are going to miss. You're going to mess that up. But look, that's clearly what the rule is, and you got to know the rules. All right. Rounding digits to the right decimal point. The number must end at the rounding place. Where was the box? In this place. Where did the number end? At that place. Where was the box at this place? Where did the number end? At the rounding place. Now, some of you, you're not going to box in your rounding digit. I know you're not. So then if you don't end it in the right place, guess what? That's on you. Because here's a simple way to make sure you end it at the rounding place. Box it in and make sure it ends up there. You'll be in good shape. Let's do some examples. So let's round these to the 1,000. So go ahead and do A, B, and C of number 1. Don't do number 2 yet. Do A, B, and C of number 1. Okay, so Justina, say yours again.
5 and above, give it a shove.
5 and above, give it a shove. Alex, say yours again.
5 or more, let it soar.
5 or more, let it soar. All right, so what sounds good to me. Did you ever hear the term 3 to thrive? 3 to thrive? What it means is go to 3 church services to thrive in your church, but it really should be 4 to soar. Sunday school, Sunday AM, Sunday PM, Wednesday PM. 4 to soar. All right. So anyhow, but that's not this soar. This soar is 5 to soar. All right, do A, B, and C. So what are we rounding to? We're rounding to the 1,000. So 10, 100, 1,000 place. 7 is 5 or above. Go up 1. I better have 0 placeholders because 53,701 better round off to 54,000, right? So I hope you got 54,000. On this one, I'm rounding, I'm rounding to the 1,000th place. That's a 1. Leave the 0 there. Again, 0 placeholders. And this one, I'm rounding here. Domino effect, right? So 0, 0, 0, 4. And I still need all these 0 placeholders, right? 4 million. All right. Are you 3 for 3? 3 for 3? All right. So these are harder now. These are usually where students will make mistakes. Go ahead and try to do A, B, and C of number 2. Mistake or 2. I mean, it's possible. Okay, and all these we're going to the 100th, so that's there. I look at the digit. It's less than 5, so I got to leave it alone. So my cursor's in the way. Okay, that was a 6. 0, and I can put the 0 in front or not have it, but it's 0.06, nothing more. If you have anything more, you are wrongo. All right? You are wrong. B, we're rounding to that place. I look. It's 5 or more. I'll let it soar. And I got to end at the rounding place. On the last one, the 9 is in the rounding place. 5, what's yours again?
5 and above,
5 and above, I'll give it a shove. And therefore I'll give it a shove. And therefore I'll give it a shove. And I'll end it at the rounding place, right? 40.00. Okay, everybody stop. I need you quiet. So again, in real life, what happens is Are these two numbers numerically equal? Yes. Are they accurately equal? No. This number shows that we're accurate to the hundredth. This number shows that we're accurate to the ones. This is way more accurate, 40.00, and in real life, that is what happens. Certain equipment is more accurate than other equipment. And the more accurate your equipment is, the more decimal places you can round off to. If you were to use a micrometer, you don't know what that is probably, but if you were to use a micrometer, you can get to the thousandth and sometimes 10,000, depending upon how good the micrometer is. So the round off shows you the accuracy, and therefore you want them there to show where you round it to. Okay, let's do a few more. Last ones, round each to the 10,000th. All right. Now again, listen, I'm not hearing a lot of questions. I've got an occasional one or two here or there. So don't be foolish and not know what's going on and not ask questions. Because again, after today, we got to be done with rounding and have it down pat. And I'm trying to give you some of the harder cases to expose a place you might be having trouble. All right, 10, 100,000, 10,000. 5 or above, I'll give it a shove. That becomes a 1. I still have the 0, the 6, the 0. And again, some like to have the other 0 in front. So 0.0601. How many got that correct? Okay, next one, 10, 100,000, 10,000. 5 or more, let it soar. So that goes to a 2, 629.0. So 0.9262 or 0.9262. How many got that one correct? All right. Brainiacs in this last one, 10s, 100,000, 10,000. 10s, 100,000, 10. Uh-oh. 4.
4 or below, stay down.
4 or below, stay down. Did you just make that one up?
Yes.
You are not a poet and you don't know it. All right. 11.0999 would be the correct answer. How many got that one correct? Questions? Josiah.
I got one of the little.
4 below, leave it alone. Again, you're a poet. You're not a poet and you don't know. All right. Anybody else?
Oh, wait.